Hi everyone. Yeah, so I'm Rachael Owens. I guess the word is recovering architect now. I'm co-director of the National Retrofit Hub. Many of you will already know who we are, but for those of you who don't, we're a non-profit collaborative organisation. We're trying to bring together all those working in the retrofit sector to collectively overcome some of the barriers to retrofit at scale. How do we do that? So we try and connect and amplify the sector. We know that there's already great work going on and we want to be able to share that and help people repeat the successes that are happening. We also want to work with the government. So we have been talking to the government about what we hear from industry, about what they need from policy to do better work. We do research ourselves. That research is really built from collaboration with our stakeholders, bringing people together in the same room, trying to form consensus on really tricky topics. And from that, we provide independent insights and tools. Some of those are relevant for people in this room who are practicing retrofit. Some of them are for policymakers to help them understand what we need to see to do this work better and faster. Why do we do this? So we know that the impact of cold, damp, mouldy homes is huge, and it's fundamentally important for young people. So much so that more than a quarter of young people who live in cold homes are found to have 4 or more negative mental health symptoms. That's compared to just 4% of children who have always lived in warm homes. And even more shockingly, there are studies that show that social workers, 1 in 5 of them, have seen children removed from their family due to unsafe housing conditions. Nothing to do with the family's ability to care for that child, but to do with the fact that they can't be safe within their home because of its poor quality. We also know that there are a lot of people living in fuel poverty. About a third of people in Scotland do so. And at least 10% of Scottish homes have issues with damp and mould, but we imagine this figure will be much higher once you take into account all of the self-reported issues. And we're also living in a time of massive change. We know that the changing climate places buildings at a higher risk of degradation, of damp and mould, because of the added humidity in the air, the increase of storms, and also overheating, which is a bigger risk that we're seeing for our buildings. So we think retrofit is a fantastic solution to a lot of this. And when we talk about retrofit, what we mean here is any upgrades to a building that might improve its energy efficiency, that might improve its health, its well-being, reduce its carbon emissions, make it more climate resilient. And the impacts are far and wide. Not only will retrofit have positive impacts for people living in homes, but it can help reduce grid load, improve energy security, create good quality local jobs, innovate and grow. But at the same time, we know that this isn't happening at scale, and there are issues. David's already mentioned the report that came out on the eco scheme that showed a huge percentage of eco installs, which included solid wall insulation, had failed. Now we know that this isn't the whole sector. We know it isn't every funded scheme. We know that there are people in the audience doing incredible work, but this has huge knock-on impacts to the whole retrofit sector, because if you're a member of the public and you're reading headlines like this, you're going to be worried about retrofit. You're going to lose trust in it. You're going to not really feel that great if, say, your housing provider approaches you to say, I'm going to retrofit your home. That trust that we have with citizens is really fundamentally important to driving demand. So this is an issue that we all in the room need to take very seriously. So why is it happening? Our research, what our network is telling us, trawled LinkedIn a little bit, shows that these are some of the issues. So top-down, one-size-fits-all policy that really focuses on numbers. So many of these schemes measure measures installed. They're not thinking about the actual performance of the building. Very few of them require actual performance measurement, and very few of them are thinking about the impact on people. There's a cost-cutting and race to the bottom in some of these schemes. People are encouraged to submit very low tenders to reduce the cost of each of these measures. There's also a lack of funding sometimes for key components like ventilation, which will automatically mean that the install and the process isn't going to be successful if those things can't be installed when they need to be. There's limited funding for good quality design and coordination, and I think many of you in this room will know how important that is. There's also really poor accountability. We've all heard the stories of people who have had these issues in their homes, have seen black mold forming, have seen damp running down their walls, but haven't been able to get to the bottom of who they should actually be talking to, who is the one that's responsible for making this right. There are really unclear redress routes, and residents are just disempowered. There's a lack of funding for local advice and support, and we think that could play a huge role in both helping redress and supporting tenants and residents, but also to getting the work done to a higher quality in the first place. We think also an issue is that a lack of value for traditional techniques, traditional materials, understanding our local vernacular and what it really needs. And tied to that is a lack of skills and competence. We know that the workforce needs to grow, but we also need it to be skilled, which is exactly what David was talking about earlier. So we think generally the real nature of our buildings is often being left out of the equation. We also think that citizens and communities are being left out, and really these are the people who are the reasons why we're doing this work. So we know government's got a lot to do here. We know that there needs to be a robust quality assurance framework that works across tenures and across funding models, but we also think that the industry can do so much here as well. We also really think that better performance monitoring and reporting is key to this. We want to see supporting of skills development and local supply chains. We want to see better design for local typologies, more understanding of community and occupant needs, and also enabling of community-led co-design. So what are the NRH doing? What are we trying to do to sort of shift the dial here? So first of all, we have a project called Measuring Outcomes and Impact Evaluation. This was formed off the back of the understanding that so many of those retrofit schemes target a really narrow range of outcomes, and those that they do target, they don't often measure properly either. This project is looking at how we can embed more benefits like health, well-being, and climate resilience into schemes, and also better measure those targets that are already embedded. We have a few different outputs that are coming out of this project at the moment on the QR code. There's loads of QR codes, but these are all available on our website. One of them, though, is an analysis of all the different large retrofit schemes, what they target, what they measure, what they report, but fundamentally don't measure, and where the gaps are. And then these innovator profiles, which showcase solutions for better measurement of retrofit outcomes, one of which is the Build Upon framework, which was developed by UKGBC and Leeds Sustainability Institute. On skills, earlier this year, our working group, 3 chairs, Cara Jenkinson and Pippa Palmer, authored this report. It was formed off the basis of about 18 months of really deep industry engagement across the sector, and sets out 10 priorities for developing a skilled and competent workforce. We've been engaging with DESNES on this, and we're really hoping to see some of its recommendations within the Warm Homes Plan, so fingers crossed. We also know that there's a need for more information on the appropriate types of works for different types of buildings. Archetyping is a really interesting methodology that can be used to understand what interventions might be suitable for different building types. It's a really useful starting point. It can be used for engagement and also to plan works. But at the same time, we had members of our group concerned that if you did archetyping badly, it could lead to sort of blanket approaches, a one-size-fits-all policy, and a lack of detailed design. So what we did is put together this best practice methodology for anyone who's looking to use archetyping, so that you can make sure that you're factoring in all the things that you need to avoid unintended consequences. You can also go on our website, and we've got this big searchable library of all the archetype design guides that are out there. I'm imagining that some of them will be authored by people in this audience, and we really want to showcase the great work that's already happening. In terms of understanding community and occupant needs, we've just started a project that's funded by the MCS Foundation in collaboration with UKGBC and EDRC about place-based approaches to retrofit. These are taking a sort of collaborative, participatory approach, really grounded in local knowledge, taking a deep understanding of what local needs are, and also what the place's resources and supply chain are, and how we can work with those to strengthen retrofit delivery in place. What we're trying to do with this project is to enable more widespread adoption of these approaches, supporting practitioners to engage. So we're going to be coming up with sort of tools and resources that allow you to not have to start from square one when you're in a place trying to start this sort of scheme. And then we're also trying to enable community-led co-design. So our Retrofit Connect project is working within the Retrofit Reimagined wider programme. We're supporting 9 community organisations who are demonstrating and trialling street-by-street co-design retrofit approaches, and our role in it is really connecting them both to one another, but also to all of the experts within our network. We're providing troubleshooting, technical, governance support, and making sure they can all learn from one another. And it's been such a privilege to be able to work with groups like this who are doing this work on the ground right now. And we know that there's so much inspiring action happening across the UK. And I've just got a few examples here. I'd really recommend looking some of these up because they've got some great literature you can dive into. So I'm really inspired by the work that Material Cultures and Civic Square have been doing together. They've been understanding their material and productive landscape of their place so that the retrofit works that they're sort of planning can be designed to utilise and support natural resources. I like this quote from them. They say, "The mapping of materials, manufacturers and processes can support our site to embody and work towards social, ecological and material justice in and beyond our neighbourhood." They're then taking this further. So they are using the building site itself as a place for learning. So they're bringing in local people, teaching them how to work with local and natural materials, giving them the skills that they need and enabling these new types of supply chains to be developed in their place. In Sheffield, the South Yorkshire Mayoral Combined Authority have been partnering with Climate Alliance and the National Energy Action, running an energy hub, which is providing free information on energy, retrofit, renewables, and fuel poverty. And each day they have an expert on each one of those topics go into the hub. And you as a local resident can pop in, you can have a chat, you can find out more, you can get connected. And it's a really great way of building engagement. Simca are also working on a project called Let Zero, funded by Innovate UK, which is creating a one-stop shop for the upgrade of the PRS, the private rental sector, which we really are pleased to see because that is the sector that has some of the worst performing homes and really needs support to sort of streamline the upgrade process there and support landlords to make the upgrades that are necessary. In Bristol, We Can Make have been enabling street-by-street retrofit using really deep community engagement and co-design alongside monitoring and testing with Bath University. It's a really complex project, not only because they're really trying to start with where the street want to go with this, where the neighbours want to take this, but also the buildings are often overcrowded. Many of them have failed cavity wall insulation, so they're looking at the moisture implications of different types of solution. They're bearing in mind the challenges that these buildings pose. Really great learnings though, because I can imagine that this is something that is probably prevalent across a lot of the UK, and they have a great webinar series on this. Centric Lab are also doing really cool work. They've created this methodology to enable grassroots organisations to assess and understand the health impacts and needs of their place and come up with solutions collectively. They call it the Community Health Impact Assessment. And this group of partners have been collaborating to help Saltaire residents to understand the performance and impact of their homes and how they can work collectively to improve them. So they have run engagement events, they've done flyering, they've done communications, they've got courses for residents, and they've produced archetypal design guidance to help that place really collectively upgrade the homes they have. So you're probably thinking right now, well, what can I do to get involved? This is all very inspiring. Can I be a part of this? So what I would urge you to do is scan this QR code. This is probably the most important one. Send yourself this link to fill in later, but this is our newly launched Retrofit Community of Industry. What we were really finding is that there are these great initiatives on the ground, grassroots organisations doing fantastic work, but they need that technical support. They need the support from people like yourselves in the room who are working in this industry day in, day out, but want to see something happen live, want to see something happen a bit sooner. So what this will enable you to do as a practitioner is connect with these fantastic community organisations, provide them with some of the expertise and support that you can provide, and really learn from also how they're delivering as well. So we think it's a really exciting initiative. The sort of baseline is make a pledge to share some of the great work that's happening in these types of community organisation. And then from there, you'll also have the opportunity to sort of get involved and make direct connections. So we really hope that you'll want to get involved in that. All of the QR codes are available on our website. Please do sign up to our newsletter. It's absolutely great. I can say that because I don't write it. And it contains lots of information about everything that's happening in the retrofit space. We want to keep you really well informed. And thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rachel. That was brilliant. It's great to see all those examples of practical solutions that are being deployed across. We're going to, again, we've got questions on the Slido, so please start to bring your questions in. What do I want to ask you? So I think when you're talking about, well, one thing, you gave those examples around activity that's happening in initiatives, and we talk about how we're saying, how do we do this at scale? How do we, in upstream? But when I was listening to your presentation, I started to think, well, actually, maybe that's not the case. It's the activity that's happening and being undertaken. It will naturally evolve and grow, and with bringing people in, technical expertise, and maybe it doesn't need to be. It can be quite different in different areas due to lots of different reasons, archetypes, local, regional. Just what your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think when we talk about scale, it's really important to realise that we're not just saying, okay, we need all this from national government. Yes, we absolutely do need things from national government, and what we hear from community groups and local authorities is we need national government to sort out the quality assurance landscape. We need national government to have clearer funding routes, less complex eligibility requirements. We need them to invest in upskilling and those sort of like big infrastructural type supporting services that can really enable the work to happen from the ground. But I think we also must sort of know that the scale can happen at local levels. It doesn't have to be from the top. Yeah, there are things we need from the top, but actually the people leading this need to be the ones that have knowledge of a place, have knowledge of the resources that are available in a place, have knowledge of the people there, and understand how this is going to work for them, because it's not going to be the same approach for everyone.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. We've got some questions now coming in from the audience. So one of the biggest risks to retrofit market is poor quality delivery, the so-called cowboy builders. I love that. Should the National Retrofit Hub or similar bodies establish an approved, listed, trusted contractors to safeguard these standards and public confidence?
So this is something that the Federation of Master Builders, who are one of our partners, have been calling for. They've been calling for contractor licensing, because essentially anyone can say, I'm a builder, I can come into your home and do this work. We think that could be a really positive step. When I went to the Sheffield Energy Hub, they were signposting to builders, and I sort of said to them, what database are you using to do that? And they said, well, we're using the AACB members list because that's what we've got right now. But actually, if we had this database of registered and competent builders, that would massively help community advice hubs, because they would then have a list of people that they could signpost to. At the minute, you can provide advice, but then it's really difficult to sort of know, am I going to be recommending the right person? So I do think that could be a positive step.
That's true. We did a report for Skills Development Scotland on the need for a Glasgow Retrofit Hub, and that was something that the feedback when we did the kind of consultation with the public was this kind of registered list of contractors that can be approached. So it's something really important. So around archetype solutions, so archetypes are focused very much on domestic properties. There's a similar set of solutions. Is there a similar set of solutions that have been developed for non-domestic?
Oh yeah, it's a good point. So most of our work does focus on the domestic at the moment, just because we're quite a small, lean organisation, and we know that's a big challenge. But we've always seen all of the elements of retrofit and all of the typologies as being connected. This is all part of a system, right? So there probably are. We don't have them on our website, but if people have them that they want to signpost to, that they want us to feature, then we'd be very open to us. So if you have examples of archetypes for schools, public buildings, community buildings, offices, then we'd be very happy to try and host some of those as well.
And we'll hopefully address that non-domestic in our panel session later. What other questions am I going to go for here?
You've got better eyesight than I have.
I know, it's quite small. Okay, do you experience engagement fatigue from volunteers as part of the National Retrofit Hub? If so, how do you deal with that and sustain the energy?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because I think when we first came on board, which was about 2 years ago or so, there was this sort of real feeling of energy. Letty had produced all of this amazing work. I'd been doing a lot of work in the Architects Climate Action Network with probably people in the room. I can't see any of you, but I'm sure there's some of you out there. And I think that there was this idea that, oh, the working groups will do the work. And we quickly found that actually that's not what people in working groups want anymore. They want the connections, but they really want to be marking our homework. So that is really how we try and do our engagement, is that we'll bring people together, we'll pull together their insights, but then we'll go away and we'll try and draft something, and then we'll take it back to them for their review. But I think we're not really in the phase anymore of saying, go away, volunteers, and do all of this fantastic work for us, because I do think there is that engagement fatigue. And I think we've also tried to put together lots of different ways that people can get involved. So we have our co-creators program if you want to do like a little bit of work by yourself. We have the community of industry now. So trying to give different options for different people, and where it's beneficial also for your organisation to be part of this, to meet their
And it will come in
objectives.
Timelines as well, and depending on that person's journey and what work they're doing, and then it gives you options for, you know, what the capacity is. So that's a really great way to approach it. Angus has asked, do you think there's an issue with fabric retrofit experts lacking heating systems expertise, or vice versa? Like, do you think?
So this is something that's definitely come up in our working group 3. It's not necessarily that we've found, and maybe this is the case, that people that are experts in fabric don't know enough about heat, but we have found that people working on sites are often, you know, the building industry has become more and more specialised, and that does mean that someone working on a trade might not think about the impact of the work that they're doing on a completely different trade. So I know that you guys have been working on a project actually with Energy Systems Catapult to create basic building physics training, which I think that's going to be really impactful to help.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and it is for kind of everyone, you know, and it's sort of professionals and community people are community champions as well, and that is an open source, and I think it is a challenge, and I do start to see that there's the crossover between the two. You know, they're not so much in silo anymore. They're more integrated, the systems and the fabric, I would say. The question by Oliver, are we scaling up in community methodologies and conflict? We kind of slightly touched on that at the beginning, but I don't know, will we?
So one of the things that came up when we were scoping the place-based project was, but maybe place-based approaches take longer, because you've got to do all of this stakeholder engagement, bring people together, you've got to really think about the needs of the place, and that maybe there's a preconception that like engaging with the community takes longer than just doing it from the top down. But actually in our State of the Nation report, which David had on screen earlier, when you look at the top-down schemes, they're not delivering the pace either. It's not like we can point to any of those schemes and go, oh yeah, we're really on track for doing the numbers we need. Maybe the quality's a bit poor. No, the quality's poor in lots of them and the numbers aren't there. So actually, I think it's a bit of a misnomer that engaging with the community is too time-consuming, because not engaging with the community is also not working.
Yeah, no, there's a balance, isn't there? Is there a need for funding to support consultancy professional services required to support grassroots community-led initiatives?
Yes, I definitely think so. What we're hearing from, so there are 6 different topics that we've heard from the community groups that they want more support in. And I think these are definitely places where we're seeing that there should be support for people like yourselves to be able to come in. So one of them is shared energy systems, one is soft retrofit measures and thermal imaging, one is social contracts in neighbourhoods, another's on bio-based insulation, materials, training and standards. The 5th is on housing archetypes, and the 6th is on enabling wider support for community-led delivery. So those are the kind of key topics that we're hearing from the 9 groups we're working with where they want support. So I think there are really clear and detailed sort of technical questions that these organisations have. So that brief is quite, you know, it's quite well established to sort of support that need for funding that interaction.
Brilliant, thank you, Rachel. Okay, we've got one question now. Can funding for the NRH be secured to ensure it can continue great work?
So, I mean, if there are any funders in the room, obviously, it would be great to have a conversation. So we Our first, I suppose, we like to be really transparent about how we're funded. So our first 2 years were part funded by Innovate UK. We also have partners and sponsors who give between £5,000 and £25,000 a year, depending on how big a project we do with them. We have some philanthropic funders who fund individual projects as well, so if they're individual research projects. But it is a constant struggle, and I spend a lot of my time thinking about that. So if there's anyone in the room that thinks, oh, actually this could do with some more support and funding, we would
maybe
definitely
some collaborative projects.
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Right. No, definitely. We've got time for a couple more questions. There was one that has jumped now. Where's it gone? Okay, we'll go for the bottom one. What advice would you offer to policymakers working in conservative building industry, which frequently resists mandated changes or quality control? The very bottom one, but I'm going to find that other one that I was going to ask.
So advice for policymakers on how to work with the building industry. So one of the things we really try and do is to sort of gather up what the industry is telling us and sort of convey that to policymakers, because I think there are ways that we can develop policy which are grounded in what the industry needs. I think those of you working in this space know best what you need, where the blockers are, where the challenges are from a policy perspective. So I would say listen to what the industry are telling you and work collaboratively with them, because we're all trying to reach the same goal.
Yeah, no, definitely. Working and listening collaboratively, I think, is key. Sorry, one more question. Do we have time for one more question? And I'm going to, sorry, I've lost it again. But James is saying, great talk, Rachel. How do we support the creation of more local retrofit hubs to join homeowners with right advice, funding, consultants and contractors? And I know you've shared some examples, but how do we
so I
build on
think
that?
that there are some great models out there. I would suggest looking up some of the work that existing hubs, up here in Scotland, you've got Loco Home, Nesfit, people like We Can Make and Civic Square. Have a look at what people across the country have done and how they've engaged, because a lot of the time it might not be necessarily that you need to start up a new hub. It might be that there's an existing community organisation that's already a little bit interested in sustainability that you could work with to bring some of these topics in. Some of these organisations as well don't start straight away with going, let's insulate your homes. They start by going, how does this space impact you? Let's start thinking about communal composting. Let's start thinking about front gardens and how they can be more porous and more green. And it might not necessarily be that the direct way in is starting with the super technical retrofit. I think it's understanding what people in their place need and then kind of building towards that in a lot of cases.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Rachel. That was fantastic. Really great insight. Everyone just thank Rachel so much for that conversation.